Woo! Scramjet, very fun. Welcome back to another GTA 5 video. Today we are going to be reviewing the Scramjet, also known as a water magnet. We'll get on with that later. It's a highly used and expensive vehicle, but it is also extremely fun. If you don't mind, like this video to show your appreciation and subscribe to see more videos. Let's get right into how fun the Scramjet is and how useful the boost is. So the boost for the Scramjet works really well. You get quite the distance and height. As you can see, I just went from pretty much the CEO buildings to the agency. Quite a distance. I believe that is, if we look at it, we went from around there. We went roughly 600 meters. And then the Scramjet is also really fun most of the time. There are a few times where it's not fun, but you can just fly around, just doing whatever you want with it. I just like to boost around, seeing if I can land on buildings, if I can just do whatever. Like, if you boost and then you just fly, you can land wherever. And this is the one problem with it. It tends to be quite the water magnet. You get extremely close to the water most of the time. You tend to just land in random pools or just land in these canals. You can also just land at the ocean somehow, just randomly fly quite a distance and land in water. It makes it a little bit less fun, but for fun I'd probably rate it like between 8 and 9. Same for how well the boost works, because it is one of the best boost cars in the game. Next, let's move on to how much it costs. So the Scramjet itself can be found on Warstock Cash and Carry. It is around 4 million, as you can see. So the vehicle itself costs 4 million, but in order to unlock modifications for the Scramjet, you also need to buy a bunker and a mobile operations center. Mobile operations center can also be found in Warstock Cash and Carry. I believe it is for around 3.5 million. It doesn't show up as much for me since I've already bought it. And then the bunker, I believe, can be found in Foreclosures Base Bank. And roughly they cost around 2 million. Overall, the cost for the Scramjet and to unlock its modifications is 4 million for Scramjet, 2 million for the bunker, and roughly 3.5 million for MOC, because you also need to buy the weapons cabin for it, which is, I think, is another half a million, roughly. So it brings up the total to around about 9.5 million, or close to 10 million. Overall, the rating I do for it is 4 out of 10, because just for one vehicle, it is quite expensive. Next, let's move on to modifications, which is at the Mobile Operations Center. So in order to go into the MOC after you've bought it, you just drive up to the back and then click the button that says to access it. So the modifications that the Scramjet has is mostly just the normal modifications that most vehicles have, where it's just wheels, turbo, transmission, being able to sell it, changing the color, the loss and theft prevention, livery, lights, engine, brakes, armor. Most vehicles have them, and it's pretty much what the Scramjet has. The Scramjet would be, I would call, average for modifications, but since you need the MOC to modify it, I'd probably put it at a 4. It would be a 5 or 6 if it didn't need the MOC. Next, let's move on to the uses of the Scramjet. The first use, which I mentioned before, is just having fun with it. The boost makes it a really fun car, just boosting around. I won't call it flying. And it's just entertaining to do it. You can also race cars usually, if you feel like being a person who races just normal cars. I don't believe it beats a lot of sports cars, but it is still quite a fast car. And I suck at driving. Another use is just boosting other cars away. You tend to fly away if you boost it. They don't always go extremely far, but sometimes the distance they get is a lot more than expected. but I feel like you yourself will get a lot more than the vehicle. Where'd that car go? It's all the way down here. I got quite a far distance. All the way from up on that bend down to here. Another use is just the weapons. On the Scramjet, there's rockets, well, homing rockets, and missiles and stuff. So, it's useful for fighting. And another quite good use of it is it tends to be easy to escape from the cops. See? 2.5 boosts and we're already away from the cops. Quite useful for escaping cops. Overall, what I rate it for uses is around about a 7.5. Because, well, it is fun and good for a few things, but it doesn't have too many critical uses. Lastly, we're going to do stats. The Scramjet has extremely high acceleration. I'm fairly sure it's maxed out. The traction is also quite good, and the speed is a bit over half. I think it's near 3/4. Only problem is the braking is a little bit less than half, so it's got moderate braking, but it will outspeed a lot of the cars in GTA, and just the handling's a lot better as well. And then the boost increases how well it works. Finally, I'll show you that it can only withstand one rocket, meaning that it's got the durability of a normal car, but it can fall from quite high heights without exploding, and you can do it many times. So overall, the rating for the stats for me is probably a 7, maybe a 6.5, because it has good acceleration, traction, and speed. The braking is okay. And then the armor, if you're playing against other players, it can be a little bit bad. But when you're playing by yourself, it should be fine because you don't usually face too many rockets often. Overall, my personal rating for the Scramjet would probably be roughly around 7.5. Because overall, it's a good vehicle with a few disadvantages, but it's a great vehicle to use in most scenarios, other than when you need defense. That is only when you cannot really rely on the Scramjet. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.